Now the one thing I'm gonna show you is this portion of the stencil I'm not gonna be using tonight. And it's actually the connecting part. It's the part that would go from section to section. So I'm not gonna be using that because we're only gonna do one, but that will be here if you want to look at it.
Brian, what did you use for your scramble to make
Oh,
that?
I used a natural sea sponge instead. Yeah. So.
So the only thing you use are acrylics then?
Yeah. I do put for the actual scrumbling part of it. I use an actual what's the word? Craig, help me out. Glaze.
So I was gonna say glaze, yeah.
Beat you to it. So I put glazing in it so it lets it be a little more fluid and a little bit more see-through, and it's about the closest thing we've found that mimics the original. So since we have an original, we can kind of compare it to it. So okay, so this is actually called it's not called Lily, I don't know why I'm Lily, but this is the rose. So I'm gonna tape it on there real quick and then I'll put it back up. I need it flat to tape it on. In case you're wondering, instead of push pins, we use blue painter's tape now.
Which
Much
they
better.
wouldn't have had good.
Yeah, they wouldn't have good tape to deal with, so that's part A. So I will try my best to do it up there and not. So this specifically, the process in making the leaves look real and making the rose look real and just have the feel, that's the part we couldn't figure out. So finally, we did. I'm a lefty, so.
Can you see
It's as easy as you think in terms of putting it on. And that's all fine and dandy, but then comes the part that we didn't figure out until just recently. That simple. We were overthinking it. Didn't have to be that hard, but we made it harder than it needed to be. So imagine doing this with oil paints. How long this would take. Because from this point to the next point would have to be an entire 24-hour period at least.
What is that you're using to put the paint on?
It's just a little sponge pouncer, like a little,
You get it all.
yeah, like a little sponge. We've also experimented with about 1,000 different types of items to put paint on with, and or a fresco liner, pencil sharp brushes threw us way off track. We thought we were supposed to go back and pinstripe everything, and we weren't. doesn't look all that fancy right now, but the one thing is, with acrylics, you kind of have to do about one or two at a time, or it sets up and you can't really make the effect that you want. You can't really get in a big hurry, or it sets up and dries, so. Okay, so that's part A. So if you fast forward in time, when part A is dry,
Oh, look at you.
just like a cooking show.
How did you know about the stencils, like, ever? Like, how did you know about them and come up?
Well, Jim Prue was knowledgeable about them and told me a little bit about them, and then, of course, I had to start investigating and learning about them, so that that started it. Then we started doing more research and more learning about what they were and who he was, and before we even got these, before we even found our house. So,
Wow.
yeah. So we knew exactly what we had when we finally exposed what we found, so it really was, to us, feeling like we found some super valuable painting, even though it can't be moved out of the house, but to us, it's extremely valuable.
I'm so glad you bought that house, because
Yeah.
someone like me wouldn't know anything.
Well, that liner, well, the person who had actually lived in our home was the second owner of our house, lived in our house for 71 years, so there was little time for our house to get messed up. So that's part B, and I gotta switch colors. Same thing with this one. Put it on and take it back off. So that was a key part of the ingredient we just completely missed.
This is for the moment.
So is the acrylic paint thick enough so it doesn't bleed underneath?
Somewhat, yeah.
Is that why it's not bleeding?
Part of it is technique and learning how to, like, just exactly how hard to push and all that. But yeah, and then not put probably the key would be to not put too much on. If you put too much on, in fact, I think one of these I did leave a little bit on, because I went a little heavy-handed on the leaves, but it's, the nice thing about it is when you have 300 of them in a room, if one leaf has a little bleed on there, you never notice. So you can get away with a little bit of that. But the acrylic paints are definitely the way to go. However, if our house had been acrylic, we would have never been able to actually uncover, and we probably would have washed them off the way we had to get that liner off. So it's kind of a catch-22, but this one's a little more time consuming, so bear with me. see how he designed this so that it's really a pretty easy system. Once you understand how to do it, you can create really incredible looks. That's part B. So, goes in the oven. Now, this one's only a 3-part. However, there's actually 4 colors to it. So if you remember when I showed you this dancing figures, the part that was actually the faces, it actually had white in the background. So they actually painted 2 colors on top of each other. So I actually, for these roses to be done right, he actually calls for white background. So I actually have to put a white background on this, then I get to do the red. Very little paint to do this. I mean, very, very little paint, so. Like, that's probably enough to do about 10. So on this one, I'm just gonna do the outside. That's all GN wants to do, so. And this one, I don't have to do the wiping technique on, which is kind of nice. That's that. So,
Is it soap and water that you clean the,
so then that goes in the oven as well, and then we end up with this guy. And I'm gonna do a quick wipe down this because I gotta go red. So. So that right now is about 3 days worth of work. Just amazing.
When he's recreating these now, does he go and do all the green, all along, and then?
He's been, what
different
he's
colors?
actually, he kind of does full sections, about 6 feet, all the colors, uses a hairdryer.
Oh.
So he goes up, does a section, hair dryers it, and then he goes to the next color. So a little bit of a cheat, but it works really well.
Who is he?
Steve, you rock. Yeah. Last. Get all the magic out. So, yeah, questions answered, questions?